Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's City Council meeting. This meeting is called to order. I kindly ask our City Clerk to please take the roll call.
Bowering? Here. Bruno?
Here.
Ruby? Here. Hilberg?
Here.
Kasserag?
Here.
Maladra?
Here.
Marks?
Here.
Mayor?
Here.
Paschke?
Here.
Swanson?
Here. We begin our council meetings with the Pledge of Allegiance. I kindly ask our distinguished member of the council, Alderperson Maladra, to please lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Folks, our first item is item 3A, a presentation on fire and police pensions actuarial reports. We have our good friend, Mr. Franken from Foster & Foster, joining us this evening. Sir, I invite you up to the podium, and the floor is yours.
Okay, all right.
You're a familiar face here, so welcome back.
Thanks for having me. All right, so I'm here this evening to talk about the actuarial valuations as of May 1st of 2024 for the two public safety plans, the Article 4 Firefighters Pension Fund and the Article 3 Police Officers Pension Fund. I'll start with the fire plan. And so if you go to page 7 of the PDF, you'll see that there is, a fairly considerable increase in the contribution recommendation for this year. There's a couple things. One, there was a little bit of an actuarial loss this year, about $1 million of actuarial loss, driven primarily by the fact that our smooth return, we smoothed investment gains over a 5-year period. This year was a good year. We got over 10.5%, but the 2 years before that, we got about 0.5% last year and about -5% the year before. And so, as part of that smoothing, those investment losses from those prior years on a smooth basis, we only got a return of 5%, which is less than our 7% expectation. So, since we had less investment income, that means we end up with less investment income than expected. It increases our unfunded liability and increases our contribution requirement. But that was about an $80,000. About $80,000 of the increase is attributable to the experience. The bigger factor here, and this applies to both plans, is that we changed some of our actuarial assumptions for this particular valuation. So on page 8 of the PDF, there's two main assumption changes that occurred. One is that we lowered our investment return assumption from 7% down to 6.75%. So by lowering our return expectation, we are expecting less investment income in the future, so we have to make up that difference with higher contribution requirements, which leads to higher liabilities. So that by lowering it from 7 to 6.75%, that's a pretty, that's the biggest reason, that's the biggest driver of the change due to the assumption. Additionally, we lowered our payroll growth assumption from 3% down to 2.75%. This assumption is a little bit tricky, but this isn't how the salaries for the members increase over time. It's the overall payroll for the fire department. And this assumption does not affect the liabilities at all. It has no impact on the liabilities. But what it does change is the contribution pattern for our pension fund. And by lowering that assumption, we've lowered the expectation of what the future contributions look like. So with a 3% assumption, we're basically assuming that our contribution is going to increase by 3% per year. When we lower it to 2.75%, we lower those future increases from 3% down to 2.75%. But to cover the entire liability, we have to we have to contribute more up front because those contributions 10, 15 years down the road aren't going to be as large as what we were expecting. So effectively what we've done by lowering this assumption is we've taken some of the backloading out of our contribution pattern. While it does increase the contribution today, it will lower the city's long-term obligation to the plan. You're paying more now. And as I've said before, pensions are pay now or pay later. And when you pay more now, you get the benefit of investment returns on those contributions, and it does lower your long-term obligation to the plan. So like I said, this year's contribution increase is a little bit painful, but it will put the city on a better path going forward. On page 10 of the PDF, you'll see just focusing on the bottom two rows of numbers, the unfunded liability increased from 9.4 million to 10.4 based on the experience. So we had about $1 million increase based on the experience that occurred during the year, and then an additional $1.1 million of unfunded liability was added when we lowered the investment return assumption from 7 down to 6 3/4. You'll see our funded ratio here went from 67.5% last year to 64.3% this year. At 64.3%, I would still say that the funded ratio is higher than what the average fire fund pension plan is in the state. Okay. Are there any questions about this particular valuation? I'll go into the police report next.
Are there any questions for Mr. Franken? Alderperson Kilburg? This is regarding the fire department's pension analysis.
Right. Just so I'm following you, you said the city's recommended contribution will increase from 50.6% to 65.1%, and that's about a $200,000 increase where the city will be.
Yeah, and you'll notice that is a pretty big increase as a percentage of payroll. But on page 9, I do want to point out that the active count went from 22 last year down to 19 this year. So the projected, the payroll is actually down by $200,000 from where it was last year. So it's a $200,000 from a flat dollar amount. As a percentage of payroll, it is nearly a 15% increase, but part of that is driven by the fact that our payroll is lower than what it was last year.
And just so I understand, then the member contributions then will be reduced by about $20,000.
Well,
versus
the members contribute a flat rate, and so the reason it's going down by $20,000 here, and we say it's an estimate, is because it's based on the payroll, the expected payroll. And so since that payroll is going to be less than what it was last year,
That's
it's the same percentage, but it's just on a lower payroll.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Yep.
Anyone, Alderperson Swanson?
Thank you, Mayor. On the change in the assumption for the expected rate of return, we went from 7 to 6 3/4. What are you seeing as the average out in the marketplace that most people have?
Yeah. Excuse me. The average, there's surveys that are performed each year, and of the 150, approximately 150 largest pension funds in the country, the average is somewhere around 6.95%. So it is a little, it's a little bit below 7. 20 years ago it was at 8. It's been trending downwards for the last 20 years. If 2 years ago when I was sitting here, if I was sitting here 2 or 3 years ago, the expectation was much lower. It was 6.4, 6.5%. If we're just looking at the estimate of forward-looking assumptions, we were at 7% at that point. The expectations were, like I said, much closer to 6.5. In the last 2 or 3 years, though, the expectations have come up a little bit because of the increase in interest rates. You know, we're no longer getting 2% on fixed income, we're getting 4 or 5%. So as the result, the expectations have come up as well. And so now I would say that the expectation based on as we sit here today, you know, is closer to 7% than you know, relative to where it was. So most plans in the state are, you know, in that 6.75% to 7%. I would say they're, you know, the biggest group of funds are at 6.75%. The second biggest group is at 7%, and then 6.5% would be the third biggest group. The consolidated fund, as you know, they have all the investments now, and this is the first full year in which both plans have had their assets with the consolidated fund. The police fund is using an expectation for the consolidated fund's purpose of 6.8%, but the fire plan is actually using a much higher rate at 7.125%. So, you know, anywhere in that, you know, 6.75 to 7% range is what, you know, is the most typical rate that we see. Not just in Illinois, but really, you know, nationwide.
So we're being conservative by lowering it
Yes.
to 6
Yep.
3/4 is really.
Yep.
Okay. And then I had another question in the detail, it showed that we missed on the assumed salary increase in the fire. I think we assumed 5.59%, and it came in at 7.2.
Yes.
And given that we have the union contract, what else is impacting that? Is that the demographics, the mix of where they are in their career, or how do you miss on that?
Yes, so you know, this is a long-term assumption. So the assumptions that we are using, it's actually summarized on page 20. It's a service-based table, and you know, so we assume that those that are hired in their first year, they're getting 12.8% increases on average, and then it goes down to 10.77 for 1 year, and it grades down until we get to 8+% over. For eight or more years of service, we're assuming 4.25% increases, and so this is based on, you know, experience studies, and you know, so the union contract, while you know the current union contracts, while they, you know, we can look at them, you know, that's, you know, we're not using them as the basis for our assumption. You know, a couple years ago, you know, or a handful of years ago, whenever it was, you know, there was 0% increase. You know, a lot of places weren't increasing. We weren't using 0% because that would, we knew that would understate the liability over time. If we base it off of the current contract, and whether it's low or high, you know, we're projecting these salaries out 50 or 60 years. So we try to come up with, you know, an average, something that we think over the long term is going to be realistic. And so on page 13, in section I-1, this shows the last 5 years of experience. And as you mentioned, this current year, the assumption was 5.59. The actuals were 7.2. So the experience was a little bit higher, and that contributed to the actuarial loss that I talked about. You know, last year we were assuming 5.93. You know, we must have had more people that were in some of those lower service buckets, since it's a little bit higher than this year. We were assuming 5.93. The actual was 5.03. So last year there was a bit of an actuarial gain. The year before that, 6.93 were the increases. The expectation was 5.6. So a loss. The year before that, you know, we were assuming 1.82. Oh, sorry, we were assuming 5.66, and the actual was 1.88. And so there was a gain that year, and then there was a gain back in 2020. And so, you know, we're not looking at these, you know, we're not looking at the assumption and determining whether or not it's a reasonable assumption by looking at it, just looking at 1 year. We look at it over time, and if you look at that information on page 13, you'll see in 3 of the last 5 years, the assumption overstated, and then a couple of the years and understated. And so as long as we're not consistently seeing, our assumption be 5% and the actual 7%, where there's consistent losses, that would be a red flag that, hey, maybe our assumption isn't reasonable. From what the experience I'm seeing here, I think our assumption is reasonable, because about half the time we're understating, the other half we're overstating.
Okay. That
makes
makes sense to me.
Okay, great.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else from the dais? Questions for Mr. Franken? There's no action tonight. This is simply a presentation.
Yes, police. That was fire.
Oh, forgive me, I'm sorry.
Oh,
Police, yeah.
No.
Sorry about
Hey,
that, Deputy
yeah,
Chief.
No, that's fine, that's fine. I'll make
thought
it
you guys-
quick. I'll make it quick, because basically everything that I just said for fire applies to the police fund as well. We made those same assumption changes that I talked about. We lowered the expectation from 7 to 6.75 on the investments, and we reduced our payroll growth assumption, meaning that we eliminated some of the backloading, so it bumps up the contribution today. And this plan, the total, there's more people in this plan. It's about twice as big, from a liability perspective. So the impact is going to be greater. There's more people, there's more liability. And you'll see that on page 41 of the PDF. We have a $448,000 increase to the contribution requirement this year. Of that increase, about 200 of it was, about 240 of it, I guess, was due to the experience, and the additional 200,000 was due to the assumption changes. One thing I do want to point out on page 36, on page 46, I'll do some math in my head here. Page 46 of the PDF is, if we look at, there's 3 columns here. The right-hand column was last year's number, and if you look at this expected city contribution, you'll see it was $2,140,000, which is 58.8% of payroll. This year, before the assumption changes, you'll see that the increase went from $2,376,000 from $2,140,000 to $2,376,000. But as a percentage of payroll, it only increased from 58.8% to 59%. And that's because our payroll went up as we expected. And so for the fire plan, we saw that going the other way. The increase as a percentage of payroll was much larger because we have fewer actives this year, and so the payroll went down. Here, the payroll went up by about as expected, and before the change, before the assumption changes, we were really right where we were expecting at that 59% of payroll. Because the goal here, based on the Illinois Pension Code, is to fund this as a level percentage of payroll. So ideally, last year, when I was sitting here, I would have expected my contribution to be right around 59% of payroll. That's where we ended up. But then if you go to the left column, after we changed the assumptions, that's where it bumped up by 5.2% from 59% to 64.2%, and which is an additional about $206,000. So again, this is really, we've taken a lot of, we've taken some of the aggressiveness out of the contribution development, and we've become more conservative. We've lowered the target from 7 to 6 3/4. That's going to be easier to achieve in the future. So so hopefully we'll have larger our investment gains going forward, because when we get 10%, that's going to be a bigger gain at our new assumption. And we've eliminated some of the backloading, so that means we're going to be putting more money into the plan, and as we earn those investment returns, it's going to lower the city's long-term obligation. But that's ultimately that's how we ended up, going from, getting to our contribution requirement. On page 44, just quickly, the funded ratio, you'll see, did go down from 60.9 to 58.1. So it did take a little bit of a step back. Again, that's almost entirely due to lowering that investment return assumption. Like I said, pretty much everything else is the same. It's just sort of at a little bit larger of a scale since there's more assets and liabilities in the plan. So are there any questions about the police valuation?
Alderperson Kilberg.
I had one on the fire yet, so if
Okay,
there are any
that's
police,
fine.
go ahead.
Any police questions or questions regarding the police pension analysis?
Maybe I missed this when you were going through it, but under liabilities, active retirement benefits,
Which page are you on, man?
I'm on page 7.
7 of the PDF or the 7 of the, looks like bottom of the, okay, so page, okay.
It's
pass.
a comparative summary of principal valuation results.
Okay,
Okay, I see at the top, our actives remain constant. In other words, well, we were off 3 actives from May of '23 to May of '24. And our old assumption and our new assumption were correct at 19. But if we go to the retirement benefits, we have about, in May of '23, we were at over about 15.3 million. Our assumption was 14.1, but it actually came back at 14.9 million. So we had about an $800,000 disparity there. Explain why, if our actives remain constant, why do we have the $800,000 disparity between what our assumption was and what the actual result ended up being?
okay, I can answer that question. So let's just start with the 15.3. Again, that's based on last year's actives.
Right.
Last year's salaries. We moved to this year, as we discussed, we did have a loss on the salaries. There were more, the salary increases were a little bit larger than what we expected. So that contributes, offsets some of that, the difference by, the offsets some of the impact of having fewer active. So we end up at 14.1. The going from 14.1 to 14.9 is entirely the result of lowering our investment return assumption.
Okay.
So the way we calculate the liabilities is, let's just say that we assume that someone is age 50 today, and they're going to get $1,000 every month from now until they die at age 85. That's 35 years of $1,000 per month. We discount all of those cash flows at, last year we were discounting it at 7%. And so that middle column, we're using 7% to discount those cash flows from wherever they happen in the next 35 years to our valuation date, which is May 1st of 2024. Then we do that same exact, nothing else changes. We have the same $1,000 per month. And now we're discounting it at 6.75% rather than 7%. So by discounting, we're assuming that, essentially we're assuming that it's going to, we have to pay, or that the cash flows are being discounted at a lower rate. So when you lower that rate as part of the discounting, it increases the liabilities. So that's what it is. It's just, we've lowered our discount rate, and by lowering the discount rate, it's going to increase the total overall liability, and so that's why it went from 14.1 to 14.9.
And as it relates to both plans, the age distribution and anticipated retirements, have we moved through a majority of the potential retirees that we had been talking about 2 or 3 years ago? Is that documented in here at all?
So let's see. So I think you're asking, so let's.
I guess I'm looking.
It's page 31. Let's start on page 31.
Okay.
So on page 31, there's tier 1 actives, which have those are the people that were hired before 2011, and then there's
Okay.
tier 2 actives that were hired after 2010. You'll see that and the tier 2 benefits are less valuable than tier 1 benefits. So you'll see in this valuation, this is the first year where we have more tier 2 people than tier 1 people. So the tier 1 people, you see, 3 years ago it was 19, and then went to 12, and then 11, and down to 9. So we have been seeing some turnover in the active tier 1 actives, and we're replacing those with tier 2. You can see, like, the average age, the tier 1 actives are, nearly 48, while tier 2 actives are only 38. So that gives you an idea of sort of high level what the counts look like. If you flip to the very next page, you can see this shows the age service distribution. And if you go to on the age, if you go to 50-54, the 50-54 bucket, and then 20 in the service, if you go to 20 and 24, and you look at, sort of that matrix, anything that's to the right and below those two lines, those are the people that are currently eligible to retire. So you can see there's one person in the 20 to 24 bucket and 2 people in the 25 to 29 bucket. So there are 3 people, there's only 3 people that could retire today. And, that if you look, there's about 5 people, it looks like, that are going to be eligible within the next 5 years. Yeah. So there's, 3 of 19, there's not a lot of people that are currently eligible to retire. So I think, those retirements many of those retirements have occurred in the last 3 years, where we've gone from that 14 tier 1 people down to the 9 tier 1 people.
So as it relates to our pension plans, though, you'd say that we have a more healthy distribution of service employees?
Yeah,
length of service?
The quicker that, that ratio of tier 2 people to tier 1 people goes up, the better it is in the long term for the plan. If all 9 of those people retire, they're not all eligible, but if all 9 tier 1 people retired today, next year there's probably going to be a big actuarial loss, because everyone's going to be retiring sooner than what we expected. But on the flip side, if they're replaced by tier 2 people, it's going to lower the cost going forward. So it's, like I said, if they all left tomorrow, the plan would take a hit from the contribution perspective. It would spike up, but then over the long term, it would be better off, because those tier 1 benefits are no longer being earned, and it would be replaced by tier 2 benefits, which are much, less valuable than tier 1. So that makes sense.
Essentially, it's trending in a favorable direction for us.
Yes, I think so.
Thank you.
Anyone else on the police pension analysis? As stated earlier, there is no action to be taken. We appreciate Mr. Franken spending time with us and explaining all this. Thank you very much.
Thanks again for having me.
Always good
I
to
always
see you.
enjoy my trip to Geneva. I actually watched your high school football team play football. They played. My kids go to Wheaton Warrenville South, so yeah, that was. I tell you what, I didn't. It's the first time I've seen it. They got pretty explosive offense from what I could tell by watching one game. So it looks like there might be a force to be reckoned with here this year.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Item 4, folks, amendments to the agenda. Are there any amendments this evening? Item 5 is the omnibus agenda. All items marked with an asterisk are considered to be routine by this council, and all those items can be considered and acted upon with one motion. Is there such a motion? Motion by Bowring, seconded by Patchke. City Clerk, please take the roll.
Bowring. Aye. Bruno.
Aye.
Ruby.
Aye.
Kilberg.
Aye.
Kasserag.
Aye.
Maladra.
Aye.
Marks.
Aye.
Mayor. Aye. Paschke.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
With 10 affirmative votes, 0 nay votes, and 0 alderpersons absent, the omnibus agenda has been approved by this council. We jump to item 8, municipal bills for payment. We kindly ask our city clerk to please read the bills in their aggregate for our consideration.
Municipal bills for payment total $4,674,293.06.
Mayor, I move that we approve and pay the bills as read. The individual items that add up to that amount can be found in tonight's city council packet and on the city website.
Alderperson Bruno makes the motion to pay the bills as presented, which appear in our city council packets and available on the city's website. Is there a second to Alderperson Bruno's motion?
Second.
Seconded by Bowring. City Clerk, please take the roll.
Bruno,
Aye.
Ruby. Aye. Kilberg.
Aye.
Kasserag.
Aye.
Maladra.
Aye.
Marks.
Aye.
Mayor. Aye. Paschke.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Bowering.
Aye.
10 votes in the affirmative, 0 votes in the negative, and 0 alderpersons absent. The bills have been approved for payment. Item 9 is Committee of the Whole items of business, and there are none because those are all under consent. Item 10 is presentation of ordinances and resolutions. 10A is consider ordinance number 2024-36, amending Title 7, Traffic and Motor Vehicles, Chapter 4, Traffic Schedules, Schedule 7, No Parking Places of the Geneva City Code, prohibiting parking on the east side of Ivernia Court, 50 feet from Eckland Avenue.
So moved.
Motion by Bruno, seconded by Bowring. Ms. Dawkins.
Okay, so while responding to a call for service, the Geneva Fire Department's tower truck was unable to safely navigate the turn from Eckland Avenue onto Ivernia Court, in part due to a vehicle parked on the east side of the street. The intersection and issue of accessibility or of emergency vehicles was reviewed by staff, not only from Police Department, but the Fire Department and the Public Works Department, for potential remedies. Following conversations with residents, the recommended solution is to amend the Geneva City Code to add a 50-foot portion of the east side of Ivernia Court north of Eckland Avenue to the no parking places schedule. For more information, we do have with us this evening Deputy Chief Dean.
Any questions from the dais for the Deputy Chief? Alderperson Bowring.
I don't have a question. I just wanted to thank the chief on behalf of all of our staff. I know that a lot of time and effort went into this, and there was a lot of consideration and deference to the residents in this area, and just wanted to applaud the efforts to come to a solution that seems like it will provide safe access, which is paramount, but also be the least disruptive to the residents. So thank you to all of you.
Thank you, and you're welcome.
Anyone else? We have a motion by Bruno, a second by Bowring. Oh, Alderperson Kilburn?
I just
Excuse me.
had one. Those streets east of Anderson, east of the high school over there, are narrower streets, aren't they?
Yeah, most of them are, yes.
Yeah, and I'm sure that you've gone through some type of an assessment as it relates to some other turn or potential turn problems in that neighborhood. Were there any other that were considered somewhat problematic, potentially based off of where cars were parked, or does this seem to be the most obvious one?
None that were necessarily identified. This problem really came to be after a call for service from the fire
Yeah.
department when they tried to make that turn. So, we kind of rely on, comments from other city departments, about emergency vehicle access. And this was the only one that really kind of came to be.
Well, the new truck does present some challenges, so because of its length, obviously, what, we got another 10 or 15 feet with that
It's a
rig?
large truck, yeah.
I would
So-
note, they have done a survey kind of going through town when they first got the tower truck, because most of it was raising the tree canopy, more so than the turns. It was
Oh, okay.
the height of trees, so they had gone through.
Oh, they were brushing, okay.
So to raise the canopy on several streets so that the truck can safely pass through.
Good, thank you.
Motion by Bruno, seconded by Bowring. City Clerk, please take the roll.
Bruno,
Aye.
Ruby. Aye. Kilberg,
Aye.
Kasserag,
Aye.
Maladra,
Aye.
Marks.
Aye.
Mayor. Aye. Paschke,
Aye.
Swanson,
Aye.
Bowering.
Aye.
Ordinance 2024-36 has been approved by this council with 10 affirmative votes, 0 nay votes, and 0 alderpersons absent. Item 10B, consider Resolution 2024-93, authorizing the purchase of 4 2025 Ford Police Interceptor vehicles in an amount not to exceed $246,568.92, inclusive of transfer, purchase, and installation of equipment and exterior graphics. Is there a motion? Motion by Marks, seconded by Kasserag. Ms. Dawkins.
Okay, so last year's budget and this year's budget included funds for the purchase of 4 police vehicles as replacements for squads that are from the years 2015 to 2020, and they have current mileage between 62,000 and 96,000. The State of Illinois bid holder for the Ford Interceptor is Sutton Ford Incorporated out of Madison, Illinois, and 2 of the vehicles in the proposed purchase are equipped with hybrid engines, while 2 are standard fuel injection systems. The total cost of the project does include, as the mayor indicated, the price of the vehicles, along with the removal, transfer, and purchase of equipment from Ultra Strobe Communications and the application of police exterior graphics by EV Graphics. I would note that there was one question posted tonight that actually came from a couple of individuals asking about why the split between 2 hybrid and 2 regular fuel vehicles. And that was based not only upon preference, but also from a recommendation of the Fleet Division, and then the ability to be able to compare the 2 types of vehicles for performance, maintenance costs, and fuel consumption in order to inform our future vehicle delivery purposes. Since this is our first hybrid vehicles, we thought it might be wise to maybe have a good comparison and see how it works out before we just go all hybrid in the fleet. And again, we do have Deputy Chief Dean with us if you have any additional questions.
Questions for the Deputy Chief? Alderperson Bruno.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for coming. I presume this class of vehicle, there isn't a pure EV available. I can't imagine. These are Ford Interceptors.
Not in the Ford Explorers. They do have the Ford Lightnings in the F-150 category, the
Right.
trucks. But in the Explorer category, no. It's just there's 3 different models. It's the hybrid, the standard, and then they have an EcoBoost version as well.
Which is a version of the internal combustion engine, I think.
Yes.
And these are, I kind of follow the industry, so I don't think there is a plug-in hybrid version either. These are standard hybrid. They can't run a little bit on electricity. So I think it's good that we're considering this. I think for vehicles, when the opportunity arises, pure EV, if we're generally staying in city limits, probably has merit because we can be back at a charger pretty readily. But that option's not available. So thank you for the research, and we'll see what the results are. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? On Resolution 2024-93, Marks made the motion. Kostrog made the second. City Clerk, please take the roll.
Marks?
Aye.
Mayor? Aye. Paschke?
Aye.
Swanson?
Aye.
Bowering?
Aye.
Bruno?
Aye.
Ruby?
Aye.
Kilberg?
Aye.
Kasserag?
Aye.
Maladra?
Aye.
Resolution 2024-93 has been adopted with 10 affirmative votes, 0 nay votes, and 0 alderpersons absent. We're at public comment, folks. Item 11, anyone wishing to join us at the podium and share with us your thoughts and comments, you're welcome to do so. This is your turn to speak, our turn to listen. How are you?
I'm fine. Most of you know me. I'm Lona Steele. I live on North River Lane in Geneva, and I'm the first vice president of the Central Kane County League of Women Voters. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that works to protect fair elections and increase civic engagement. We also endeavor to influence public policy through education and advocacy. The Central Kane County League has, for many years, sponsored candidate forums to help Kane County voters become knowledgeable about the candidates running for local office and informed about the issues these local offices will face during the coming term. Many of you have participated in one of these forums because we've seen you there. The League supports action by appropriate levels of government to encourage energy conservation and the use of renewable energy resources. The League believes that these goals must be achieved through ethical and transparent municipal government. In furtherance of this goal, the Central Kane County League will, for the first time, ask candidates for local municipal office to complete a candidate questionnaire on energy and environmental public policy. This questionnaire will be made available in early January of 2025. Although the League never endorses candidates, we hope that the candidates' answers to this questionnaire will inform voters where candidates stand in relation to the League's energy goals. Thank you, and we hope that all of you who will be seeking re-election next spring will complete the candidate questionnaire so that both you and your constituents are better informed on this important issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Steele. Anyone else? Good evening. Mr. Simon, how are you?
I'm good.
Good.
I'm Mike Simon. I'm here as member of the Board of Directors of the Geneva Chamber and owner of the Little Traveler at 404 South 3rd. First, to thank you folks, the administration, the police, the fire, Public Works, for everybody's support during Festival of the Vine. We could not do these festivals without you folks. On a personal level, Festival of the Vine, Sweetie Stays, and Christmas Walk bring in about 3 times as much business to our store as any other weekend of the year, and bring us lots and lots of new customers who wouldn't discover us without them. But you're also paying it forward because special to Festival of the Vine, in our case, is we have a wonderful partnership with the Geneva Community Chest. There are 2 board members of the Community Chest here tonight, and Community Chest provides security and lots of extra help for us. We could not do our wine tasting without them, but we are able to give Community Chest all the proceeds from our entry fees, and this year those proceeds amounted to $15,519. So you can draw a pretty straight line between your support and support for not-for-profits, including Geneva Community Chest. So thank you all.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? New business, an opportunity for the council members to share what's on their mind with all of us present and, of course, those tuning in. Alderperson Kilburg, I'll defer to you first.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the heck with him. Yeah, you can go.
Earlier today, I delivered a letter to Mayor Burns, and I'd like to share that letter with the council. Anyone who knows us will be aware of the factors that might make it difficult for my family to age in place where we've lived since 1997. My wife and I have talked about what sort of house would cause us to consider moving, figuring it would take years to find, if ever. However, a property became available that better suits our circumstances. The one drawback is that it isn't in the 5th Ward. It is in Geneva, but not the 5th Ward. Therefore, I will be stepping down from the council effective the end of our meeting on September 30th. It's been an honor to serve our community for the past 21 years. Respectfully submitted, me. Thank you.
Alderperson Kilburg.
I just want to thank Craig for his years of service to the city of Geneva. I believe Craig is the longest-serving alderman on this council. I believe he probably took his elected position probably in about 2001?
2003.
So Craig, I know, has been active in a number of other activities in the community. I know that he's been a early contributor and supporter of the pork chops and the flowers that we have across town, and I know that he continues to serve in that capacity. And again, Craig, this is certainly a surprise, but certainly well-deserved for you and your wife, and we wish you the best moving forward.
Thank you.
Anything else, Alderperson Kilburg, you wanted to share?
I think
After that.
Bruno has a comment.
Alderperson Bruno, sir?
Thank you. Yeah, that is a gut punch, Craig. I've always looked to you as the standard bearer of thoughtful and pragmatic governance. The city will miss you, and I will miss you representing us.
Thank you. I got one more meeting to go.
Alderperson Kilburg.
I had just a couple of things.
Of course.
The first would be, did anyone attend Prairie States and took the tour this year? And I guess I would be interested if anyone did, what some of their observations might have been.
I think that it ended up being canceled because there wasn't enough to go.
Okay. And then second, I guess, Stephanie, maybe you can answer this. As it relates to the referendum focus group, do you feel as though you have a good sampling of cross-segment of the community at this time? I know that you wanted some lists, some names by last Tuesday. Do you feel as though you've gotten that?
Yeah, we are finalizing that list, and I think that we've gotten some, if any, so I think we're good. But if not, I will be reaching out again.
Okay. And could you give a little bit of a timeline on how the focus group will?
I don't have any of that information at this point.
Okay,
The kickoff meeting will be coming, and then we'll know more what that looks like.
okay. And do you know how they'll be contacted? Because I've mentioned this to a few people. Are they going to be getting an email or a call?
Yeah, I will be sending an invitation via email. So it is a personalized invitation for those members that are being asked to participate.
And
And if I do not have an email, then I will call them by phone.
Oh, great,
But a lot of them I do have the email already for.
great, okay. No, thank you, and I think that's going to be an important part of the city's plans for 2025, and I think what these people all have to contribute will be pretty important. Thank you.
Alderperson Bruno.
Thank you. Alderperson Kilburg, were you specifically looking for feedback from a trip this year? Because I have been in previous years ago.
No, I've been there, but it was probably 8 or 10 years ago. So I was just curious as to what more recent observations might have been.
Okay.
But again, I don't know, how recently were you there?
Let's see, I know Alderperson, let's see, who did I go with? I was on at least 3 years, so it's probably, might have been roughly in that time frame. We weren't on the trip together, were we? I don't think so.
Brad and I went 3 years ago.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this council meeting. Motion by Alderperson Mayor. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned, folks. Thank you. Microphones are off, cameras are off as well.